Welcome to HFY friends. In this story tell about student power. The shuttle descended through thick clouds, its reinforced hull shivering under the atmospheric turbulence. Below, the Amazon stretched endlessly, a dense green quilt interrupted only by glinting rivers and the occasional clearing. Instructor Sturgis watched from the bridge, his gaze unflinching. Behind him, his 3 students checked their equipment. Clune's scanner hummed like a swarm of insects. Corin adjusted the filters on his exosuit. Zoroic stood still, silent, his obsidian-like body rigid, eyes tracking the rushing canopy. Final approach, Sturgis said. Landing zone Alpha 7. Keep calm. Observe. Learn. Survive. The shuttle touched down with barely a whisper. The jungle pressed against the reinforced windows like it wanted to reclaim them. Sturgis's boots hit the muddy ground first, unconcerned by rain-slick roots. The students followed, their suits humming as they processed heat, humidity, and gravity differences. Humidity 80%. Average temp 32 degrees Celsius. Gravity 1 g. Standard Earth normal. Understand? Sturgis's voice cut through the symphony of insects. Corin's translator flickered, then replied, precise and clipped. Environmental data suggests disordered ecosystem. Survival improbable without controlled conditions. Not improbable, Sturgis corrected. Adaptable. Observe the frogs, the vines, the hummingbirds. Chaos teaches. Chaos kills if unprepared. Clune's eyes glimmered as his scanners captured data. Biodiversity density exceeds our home world by factor of 12. Pharmaceutical potential, extraordinary. Zoroic didn't speak. He sensed the jungle beneath his feet, vibrations, tremors, life moving unseen. The first hour was a sensory assault. Corin flinched at pollen, Clune cataloged toxic plant compounds, Zoroic remained a stoic observer. Sturgis guided them carefully, explaining each danger, teaching them to rely on intuition and human ingenuity, not just technology. By noon, a landslide struck. Soil liquefied beneath the nearby ridge in a rare tectonic pulse. Trees fell, the shuttle disappeared under mud, the prefabricated shelter was destroyed. Panic might have overtaken the unprepared, but Sturgis remained calm, guiding the students to safety. We survive through knowledge, not just technology, he said, checking suits. Backup life support will keep you alive. Sensors are down. You will feel Earth's reality. For the next 3 hours they navigated mud, sharp vines, and hidden predators. Corin's exosuit suffered a breach. Pollen infiltrated his respiratory system. Sturgis administered an improvised herbal antidote, demonstrating centuries of human survival knowledge. Clune's scanners documented, Zoroic adapted with his gravity-honed physiology, Corin learned to trust instinct over tech. Night fell with a storm. Lightning tore through the canopy, thunder shook the forest. They huddled in a small cave, exhausted, humbled, alive. Sturgis traced routes on an ancient paper map by lantern light, planning their next day's trek. Earth's lessons were far from over, and every challenge forced them to adapt. 3 days later, after a grueling trek through mud, insects, and storm, they reached a hidden coalition emergency beacon. Sturgis activated it manually, its decades-old capacitors hummed to life. Rescue was en route. Corin, Clune, and Zoroic had survived without full technology. They had learned the first rule. Earth was a crucible, not a death world. Survival demanded intelligence, observation, and creativity. 6 weeks later, the Academic Review Board convened on orbital station Kepler. Corin testified. Earth is not a death world, he said, his voice firm. It is a crucible. Tessio. Those who endure emerge stronger. Humans did not survive by luck or isolation. They adapted, improvised, overcame. Technology is a tool, not a shield. The board deliberated. Then, with consensus, Earth was reclassified. Class 2 Crucible World. Not malevolent. Challenging. Educational. Sturgis, watching the broadcast from a small bar in Manaus, lifted his glass. Welcome to Earth, kids, he said quietly. Glad you survived the lesson. The morning after the storm broke with a muggy, bruised light. Mist rose in spirals from the mud-slick jungle floor, drifting among trees that had survived centuries of ecological warfare. Instructor Sturgis stood at the mouth of the cave, surveying the path ahead. The landslide had reshaped the terrain, leaving gnarled roots exposed, mud channels carved through the undergrowth, and fallen branches that were suddenly massive obstacles. Clune, amphibious and agile, wriggled through the mud, eyes wide, limbs tentatively testing stability. Zoric's heavy stone-like physiology made him a dependable anchor as he helped steady the smaller alien. Corin lagged, his silica-based exoskeleton shimmering under the filtered sunlight, still recovering from the chemical shock of Earth's pollen and the intense sensory overload. Focus on observation, not speed, Sturgis instructed. Earth's terrain punishes overconfidence. One misstep and the environment doesn't forgive. His voice carried authority and calm, a guide through the chaos. They followed the river upstream, water rushing over smooth stones in violent yet predictable patterns. Sturgis pointed out a naturally formed footpath along the bank. River systems are Earth's arteries, he explained. Follow them and you'll find shelter, food, and navigational clues. Clune hunched over his scanning equipment. Instructor, aquatic fauna here are denser than expected. The genetic diversity exceeds predictions by a factor of. Shoo, Sturgis cut him off gently. Sometimes, numbers aren't what keeps you alive. Awareness is. Listen. Feel. The first lesson came swiftly. A tangle of roots jutting from the muddy bank shifted suddenly as a caiman lunged, barely missed Clune's tail. Instinctively, Sturgis grabbed the amphibious alien, yanking him back. Clune squeaked in surprise, his limbs thrashing. Life isn't always predictable, Sturgis said. Even your scanners aren't fast enough. Here, the physical world is the measure. Clune's scanners had been recording data continuously, but nothing in his academic archives had prepared him for this raw, untamed interaction. The animal's eyes glimmered with survival intelligence honed over millions of years. A brief flick of claws, a warning hiss, and it retreated, deciding the risk of confrontation outweighed the meal. Zorik simply observed. His stone-like physiology allowed him to endure harsh conditions without immediate concern. But even he sensed the jungle's rhythm, the subtle tremor underfoot, the vibrations in the tree trunks that spoke of distant movement. Sturgis led them to a fallen tree forming a bridge across the river. Natural engineering, he said. Humans have learned to read the landscape and use what's here. Bridge, lever, trap, shelter. Everything comes from observation and understanding. Clune's appendages recorded the bridge's dimensions, analyzing tension points and the decay pattern. It shouldn't support all four of us, he muttered. It will, Sturgis replied. If you move with balance and respect the forces. One by one they crossed. The log groaned, flexed, but held. The lesson was tangible. Earth could kill with subtlety but understanding mitigated risk. By midday the group reached a high plateau overlooking a valley of dense jungle. The air here was thick, humid, and rich with scents, fermentation from decomposing leaves, the musk of mammals, the sharp tang of volatile oils from flowers. Corin gagged slightly, unaccustomed to such unfiltered chemical input. Sturgis handed him a simple cloth mask. Adaptation is faster than you think, he said. Tools help, but your body will catch up if you give it the chance. Why does Earth let life get so complicated? Corin asked. His voice, carried through the glitching translator, held genuine bewilderment. Because complexity breeds adaptability, Sturgis said. Garden worlds create predictability, stability. Earth creates challenge. Life here doesn't just survive, it learns to improvise, to anticipate, to endure. The students nodded slowly. They had glimpsed this in the storm, in the landslide, in the jaguar's hunting. Each encounter had been a test, and humans had survived with nothing but knowledge, intuition, and improvisation. As they descended into the valley, the canopy thickened. Sturgis paused by a cluster of vines, thick, rope-like, twisting upward into the branches. Practical lesson, he said. These vines are more than plants, they're tools. A trained human can use them to build, to climb, to trap, to rescue. Observe. Evaluate. Use what's available. Clune's scanning device recorded chemical composition and tensile strength. Highly fibrous, adaptable, he noted. Potential for mechanical applications. Exactly, Sturgis said. Everything here has a secondary function if you know how to read it. Earth doesn't hand you instructions. You infer, you test, you adapt. Their path was interrupted by the sound of rushing water. A small waterfall descended into a pool, its constant motion a potential hazard for slipping, but also a source of clean water. Sturgis motioned them forward carefully, demonstrating how to use balance, weight distribution, and body mechanics to navigate slick rocks. Lesson 2. Observation matters, but so does your connection to the environment. Humans live in balance with what's around them because failure is immediate if you misjudge it, he explained. Clune's sensors picked up the pool's chemical profile. Water contains trace bacteria and protozoa hazardous to my species, he said. Sturgis smiled. Then treat it. Boil it, filter it, improvise. Humans have done this for millennia without technology that scans or sterilizes. Adaptation again. Night fell with sudden darkness as the dense canopy blotted out the sky. The students prepared a rudimentary camp. Sturgis lit a fire, careful to position it so smoke escaped above the canopy without revealing them to predators. Clune marveled at the simplicity, the human reliance on tactile, immediate action instead of automated control. The night chorus of the Amazon played an unnerving symphony. Frogs, insects, and distant roars layered with wind through leaves. Corin's exoskeleton vibrated subtly in response to ambient noise. "My species filters sensory input to maintain function," he said. "This chaos is incomprehensible." Sturgis handed him a small notepad. "Record, don't filter. Learn the patterns. The chaos is the curriculum." Hours passed. Corin scribbled furiously, his understanding growing. He began to see Earth's rhythm. Not order, not chaos, but something in between. Survival required attention, interpretation, and creativity. The first real challenge of the night came in the form of rustling near the perimeter. 4 glowing eyes, low and steady, appeared among the undergrowth. Predators had detected their presence, drawn to heat, smell, and sound. Sturgis motioned for silence, evaluating the distance and potential for escape. The creatures, medium-sized felines, opportunistic yet cautious, advanced toward the perimeter. Sturgis didn't panic. He whispered instructions, having the students mimic movements to remain hidden and minimize noise. He demonstrated an improvised barrier using mud, leaves, and branches. The predators approached, assessed, and retreated. Lesson 3. Awareness, patience, and improvisation are more effective than technology, he said after the adrenaline rush had subsided. The environment responds to skill, not sophistication. As the night deepened, Corin, Clune, and Zorik began to see the patterns. The moonlight filtered weakly through the canopy, revealing the density of life. Sturgis pointed out signs, broken branches, scat patterns, mating calls, that provided information critical to anticipating danger. "Humans read the world like a living textbook," he explained. "Every mark, every sound, every scent is data. Your scanners can record thousands of points per second, but they don't interpret. Understanding comes from experience, from engagement." The storm from the previous day had left the land in flux, reshaping paths, creating new hazards, and hiding others. By dawn, the group was ready to move again. Sturgis planned their route to the emergency beacon, using topography, environmental cues, and human intuition. Hours of trekking taught lessons that no simulation could replicate. Zorik adapted to balance his weight on uneven slopes. Clune learned to gauge soil density by feel and sound. Corin's senses, initially overwhelmed, began to parse patterns, wind shifts, animal behavior, and vegetation cues. Finally, they reached a ridge overlooking the river they needed to follow for the next leg. The canopy parted slightly, revealing a rainbowed mist from the previous day's rainfall. Sturgis gestured to the horizon. "Humans use adversity to train intuition. Earth shapes us. Not by convenience, not by mercy, but by challenge." Clune looked at Sturgis. "Instructor, your species evolved here. No wonder Earth terrifies the rest of the galaxy. Survival isn't just biology, it's thought, awareness, improvisation. Humans integrate environment, technology, and intellect." "Exactly," Sturgis said quietly. "And it's not fear that drives us, it's respect for the complexity around us. Understand, adapt, and you live. Fail and you die. That's the classroom, the crucible." Corin, adjusting his damaged suit, finally nodded. "I thought we were studying a primitive world," he admitted, "but the planet itself is the teacher. Humans don't merely survive, they learn to master the unpredictability. That is why Earth terrifies those who underestimate it." Sturgis smiled, watching the horizon. The beacon lay several kilometers ahead, and the journey was far from over. But for the first time he sensed that the students were beginning to see through his eyes, the value of adaptability, the edge humanity held over the galaxy. In the distance, a jaguar's roar echoed. The Amazon remained indifferent, patient, eternal. But for now humans, and those learning from them, were ahead in the lesson. The forest seemed to breathe around them, dense and alive, every sound amplified by the wet air. Instructor Sturgis led his group along a narrow ridge, each step a lesson in balance and awareness. The previous nights had taught Clune, Zorik, and Corin that Earth did not simply challenge the body, it challenged the mind. From the ridge, they could see the river winding like a silver ribbon through the jungle, disappearing into mist-shrouded valleys. The beacon they sought lay on the far side, partially visible as a faint, blinking red light. Sturgis paused to point out the natural hazards between them and the target. "Notice the gap in the canopy over that river bend," he said. "Predators use that space to hunt. The dense underbrush along the bank will conceal both prey and danger. We have to respect the flow of life here, not fight it." Clune scanned the terrain with instruments, recording chemical signatures, animal movements, and microclimate data. But Sturgis emphasized that intuition mattered as much as technology. "You can chart the river, map the animals, and analyze soil composition," he said, "but the forest won't wait for your calculations. Move with it, not against it." The first real test came quickly. As they descended toward the river bend, the soil gave way beneath Zoric's massive weight. He stumbled, but human reflexes and Sturgis allowed him to catch the alien before a catastrophic fall. "Your mass works against you here," Sturgis said calmly. "Adapt your gait, spread your weight, read the soil." Humans survived thousands of years in similar conditions without heavy armor or tech, by learning balance and restraint. The lesson sank in. Zoric adjusted his steps, testing each patch of ground with the tips of his massive limbs. Clune, always cautious, learned to anticipate hidden pitfalls by watching Zoric's corrections and Sturgis's guidance. Corin, still absorbing the sensory overload, began to notice subtle vibrations in leaves, faint shifts in wind patterns, even the tiny changes in bird calls that indicated the presence of predators. A low growl emerged from the underbrush. 4 sleek black jaguars moved with silent intent, eyes glinting like liquid obsidian. They stalked the group, assessing which target was easiest. Humans often underestimated predators' intelligence, but Sturgis had already read the situation. "Remember what we discussed," he whispered. "Observation, patience, improvisation." Using mud, broken branches, and a few of the thick vines they had encountered earlier, Sturgis constructed a simple barrier along their path. It was not meant to stop the predators, only to channel them toward a safer route where escape was possible. As predicted, the jaguars circled, tested the barrier, and finally moved away, their interest piqued but not sustained. "Humans read the environment," Sturgis explained. "We manipulate it subtly, not with brute force. The planet rewards intelligence and foresight." Clune's scanners buzzed as he recorded the predator behavior. Their response was highly adaptive, he said. "Your species does more with understanding than my scanners can predict." "Exactly," Sturgis replied. "Adaptation isn't about speed, strength, or numbers, it's about reading the signals correctly." The next obstacle appeared in the form of a treacherous river crossing. Rain from the storm had swollen the water, creating turbulent rapids over slippery stones. Clune immediately suggested constructing a floating bridge with local flora, but Sturgis shook his head. "This isn't about construction," he said. "It's about observation and movement. Watch the flow, find stable stones, distribute your weight, and move deliberately." One by one the group crossed. Zoric's massive form caused the stones to shift, but he learned to adjust dynamically, listening to the water, feeling the momentum, and following Sturgis's cues. Clune adapted too, relying less on instruments and more on tactile feedback. Corin's silica exoskeleton absorbed minor impacts, but he still learned from the rhythm of the crossing, the subtle push of water against the stones, the way gravity shifted with every step. By the time they reached the far bank, the beacon's light grew clearer, flickering through the evening mist. Yet the journey was far from over. The path beyond was a gauntlet, fallen trees forming bridges, hidden quicksand pits, venomous snakes camouflaged in the underbrush, and swarming insects that could incapacitate without warning. Sturgis stopped to gather the group. "This is the ultimate test of what you've learned. You've seen storms, predators, unstable ground, and each time you adapted. Now you face cumulative challenges, combined, continuous, unforgiving." Clune's sensors whirred, attempting to map the hazards ahead. Environmental density is unprecedented. Predictive modeling shows a high probability of failure without intervention. "Predictive modeling is nothing if you can't act in real time," Sturgis said. "This is Earth's classroom. It punishes theory, rewards practice." They proceeded cautiously. Corin led, using his enhanced vision to detect camouflaged snakes. Clune used tactile feedback through a makeshift stick to probe the ground for instability. Zoric carried some of the heavier gear, adjusting constantly to maintain balance over precarious logs. Sturgis watched them, noting how quickly they applied lessons from the previous days. A sudden crack echoed through the trees, a massive branch gave way above them. Instinctively, Sturgis shouted a warning and all 4 scrambled for cover. The branch crashed to the ground, narrowly missing Clune. Lesson: anticipation and instinct save more lives than technology alone, Sturgis said. You adapt or you perish. Night fell again, thicker than before. The jungle's chorus was relentless. Insects, frogs, predators. The beacon pulsed faintly ahead, a symbol of civilization and extraction, but reaching it required complete mastery of the environment. Clune, exhausted but mentally alert, whispered, "Instructor, my species relies on controlled environments. Here, unpredictability is constant. Humans thrive in this chaos because your species interprets it, interacts with it, and uses it." Sturgis nodded. Exactly. The universe underestimates humanity because they see only strength, not adaptability. But we survive because we learn, improvise, and respect the rules of the world. As they drew near the beacon, a final challenge emerged. A wide chasm split by the river's erosion. The only visible way across was a tangle of vines and fallen trees forming a precarious bridge. Sturgis evaluated the structure. Balance, observation, and calculated risk, he said. No scanner can give you certainty, only experience, judgment, and adaptability. Zorik went first, moving deliberately, testing each segment of the bridge before committing weight. Clune followed, cautiously, trusting instinct over instrument readings. Corin, initially hesitant, used both his exoskeleton and newfound environmental awareness to make the crossing. Finally, Sturgis led the way, calm and steady, showing them that courage combined with knowledge was more effective than brute strength or high-tech gadgets. The beacon was in sight, but the lesson lingered. Earth did not yield its secrets easily. Humans thrived not by conquering, but by understanding, respecting, and adapting. It was a rhythm the aliens had yet to grasp fully. At last they reached the beacon. Its red light blinked steadily, signaling extraction. Sturgis placed a hand on the console, activating the emergency sequence. Clune's sensors registered the activation, while Corin and Zorik observed the process. The forest taught you more than your instruments ever could, Sturgis said. Strength is finite. Technology is limited. Awareness, adaptability, and understanding, these are infinite. Clune, still absorbing the experience, remarked, "Instructor, humanity's edge is not what I thought. It's not your weapons, nor your size, nor even your intellect alone. It is mastery of the unpredictable. The universe may have underestimated your species, but I understand now why survival favors humans in extremes." Sturgis allowed himself a rare smile. And that is the lesson we carry into the galaxy. Understand the environment, respect its rules, and adapt. Nothing else guarantees survival. The beacon's light intensified, signaling the extraction craft. As they prepared to leave, the jungle seemed almost to acknowledge them. Silent, watchful, eternal. The planet had tested them, but they had prevailed, not through force alone, but through knowledge, patience, and ingenuity. The extraction craft hovered above the jungle canopy, its engines humming softly against the night sky. Through the thick layers of mist and rain, the group could see distant flashes, lightning reflecting off the treetops, shadows twisting among the foliage. Instructor Sturgis, Clune, Zorik, and Corin had survived Earth's gauntlet, but their lessons were far from over. Inside the craft, sensors were active. Clune's alien instruments detected unusual energy signatures emanating from the forest floor, residual life signals, predator tracking patterns, and subtle shifts in geomagnetic fields. Yet the most important observation was not data, it was behavior. "Your species, humans," Clune whispered, scanning the recordings from the mission, "you respond to uncertainty with anticipation. You do not merely react. You predict, improvise, and dominate adaptive challenges. This defies conventional logic." Sturgis remained quiet, hands folded, eyes scanning the canopy below. The forest had tested them and yet had offered no mercy. Clune, though technologically advanced, had only witnessed a fraction of the human edge. Zorik, still massive and cumbersome in the alien craft, leaned against the hull. "I expected brute strength to be decisive. Instead, this feels like a game of constant observation and adjustment." "Exactly," Sturgis said. "Humans survive not because of overwhelming force, but because of mastery of environment, understanding of risk, and intelligent adaptation." Corin, observing the alien instruments, added, "It is remarkable. My species analyzes everything. Yet humans act instinctively with awareness, using minimal input for maximal effect. Efficiency without predictability." The beacon's signal pulsed. A final confirmation that the mission had succeeded. But a new signal interrupted the moment. An encrypted transmission from orbit, emanating from the outer colonies. Clune decrypted it quickly. A coalition of alien observers had been monitoring Earth's surface during the gauntlet. Their report was unequivocal. Human survival, despite limited technology and minimal preparation, exceeded expected survival models by orders of magnitude. The outer coalition, they will take notice, Clune said. Your species is unpredictable. Dangerous to underestimate. Data recommends re-evaluation of engagement protocols. Sturgis allowed himself a slight smirk. Underestimation has always been humanity's advantage. The galaxy learns slowly what Earth has known for millennia. Adaptation outweighs aggression, strategy outweighs size. The craft ascended, leaving the dense forest behind. Through the windows, the group saw the forest stretching endlessly, each river bend, each canopy gap, each shadowed undergrowth a reminder of the lessons learned. Yet Sturgis knew this was only the beginning. Extraction is temporary, he said. The galaxy will challenge humans in ways Earth cannot. But remember what you've learned: awareness, patience, and adaptability. These are weapons no alien can predict. Clune, ever the observer, compiled the behavioral metrics. If your species were deployed strategically, even with minimal weaponry, outcomes against technologically superior forces could be catastrophic. Calculations suggest your species operates on an advantage imperceptible to conventional algorithms. Intuition combined with learning efficiency. Zorik raised an eyebrow. So, humans can survive anything anywhere? Not merely survive, Sturgis corrected. Humans can turn survival into dominance. We read the battlefield before it exists. We learn faster, adapt faster, and improvise solutions alien intelligence cannot predict. As the craft reached orbit, they saw the first signs of alien surveillance drones scattered across the atmosphere. Small, almost invisible, they monitored every movement. But the human team remained calm. They had learned to move without panic, to process input efficiently, to anticipate consequences. Clune's instruments beeped. The drones detect us. Protocol suggests evasion, but I predict humans will attempt countermeasures. Sturgis leaned forward. Humans don't evade problems, we confront them intelligently. Watch and learn. With minimal input, the team initiated a series of maneuvers, utilizing atmospheric currents, calculated heat signatures, and subtle decoy emissions. The drones, advanced as they were, struggled to differentiate the craft from environmental noise. Within minutes, the extraction was effectively invisible to most alien sensors. Humans are unpredictable, Clune muttered, awe creeping into his voice. I cannot model this. Standard engagement protocols fail when your species operates outside linear prediction. Sturgis gave a rare smile. That's the point. Never let the enemy think in straight lines. Anticipation, adaptation, improvisation. These are our greatest tools. And they're free to use, unlike weapons or armor. The craft descended into orbit above a neutral asteroid field, a temporary safe haven. Clune activated additional sensors to analyze alien fleet movements, mapping potential threats and observation posts. The readings were alarming: clusters of alien warships, scanning for anomalies, waiting for a sign that Earth was vulnerable. Most species would panic, Sturgis said. Humans? We use pressure as opportunity. Every challenge becomes a lesson, every threat a tool to be understood. Clune adjusted his calculations. If humans apply this methodology in combat or diplomatic scenarios, outcomes could be significant. Entire fleets could be neutralized through misdirection and tactical adaptation. Not misdirection, Sturgis corrected. Clarity. Humans act deliberately, confidently, with knowledge. What appears as misdirection is actually mastery of situational advantage. The universe often misreads this as luck or chaos, but it is neither. As they monitored the alien fleet, Sturgis outlined the next phase of their journey. Mapping intelligence nodes, establishing safe corridors, and gathering additional planetary knowledge. Every mission from this point forward would reinforce one principle. Humans could survive, adapt, and overcome challenges that even technologically superior species could not anticipate. Zorik frowned. And the outer coalition? They saw everything on Earth. Won't they retaliate? Perhaps, Sturgis said. But retaliation assumes they understand the problem. They don't. They see humans as threats to be neutralized, but they cannot predict our thinking, our flexibility, or our capacity to improvise. That is the human advantage. Corin studied the holographic maps. It is remarkable. Even my species, engineered for logic, efficiency, and adaptability, cannot predict human decision-making consistently. Humans are not perfectly logical, Sturgis said. We are opportunistic, observant, and relentless. Logic is only one tool in a human toolkit. Intuition, creativity, and learning from experience fill the gaps others cannot see. Clune's voice softened. This will change interstellar policy. Humanity is now a variable that cannot be ignored, a force of nature that defies traditional engagement models. Sturgis looked out at the asteroid field, its jagged shapes a reminder of Earth's own treacherous landscape. And that's how it should be. The universe must learn that humans are not predictable, not weak, and not to be underestimated. We survive, we adapt, and we prevail, not through brute force alone, but through understanding, foresight, and action. As Part 4 concludes, the group prepared to exit the asteroid field and continue the interstellar mission, now fully aware of how Earth-trained instincts translate to galactic challenges. Every observation, every maneuver, every lesson from the gauntlet on Earth had forged an advantage that no alien fleet, no matter how advanced, could fully anticipate. The HFY theme is clear: humanity's edge is not technology or size, it is adaptability, intelligence, and foresight. Aliens may command vast fleets, but the humans' unpredictable ingenuity and mastery of dynamic environments make them a force that the galaxy cannot fully comprehend or control. The alien fleet loomed above the neutral asteroid field, their dark hulls reflecting starlight like jagged shards of obsidian. The outer coalition had arrived, not in curiosity but in force. Clune's sensors detected dozens of warships, each bristling with energy weapons, reconnaissance drones, and automated defense grids. To any ordinary species, it would have seemed hopeless. Sturgis, however, stood calmly on the bridge of the extraction craft. Everyone listen carefully. This is exactly the kind of scenario we trained for on Earth. Every lesson, every maneuver, every adaptation, they all lead to this moment. We do not fight with raw power. We fight with intelligence. Zoric's massive frame tensed. Intelligence? Against fleets like that? They outgun us 10 to 1. Not outthink us, Sturgis corrected. That is the difference. Remember, the battlefield is not always where the enemy expects it. Use what you've learned: unpredictability, improvisation, observation. Clune recorded every word. His species' algorithms could predict trajectories, weapon ranges, and defensive patterns, but they struggled to account for humans acting without conventional predictability. He realized now that humans were a variable, a force that could not be entirely modeled. The humans deployed the first wave of tactics: minimal decoy emissions, atmospheric interference, and subtle signal jamming. Alien sensors misread the craft's location repeatedly. Every maneuver was calculated to create false patterns, drawing the fleet's attention to empty space while the humans slipped through gaps invisible to conventional targeting. Corrin observed the displays. They anticipate responses that do not exist. It is brilliance. They operate above standard probability models. Not above probability, Sturgis said, beyond expectation. The universe predicts linearly. Humans act laterally. The fleet adjusted, sending targeted waves of plasma fire into areas humans had vacated. Each salvo struck empty space, wasted energy, and revealed another weakness in alien assumptions. Every human maneuver was both defensive and informational, gathering intelligence on fleet patterns, weapon timings, and response algorithms. Suddenly, one of the larger warships altered its course, deploying an advanced drone swarm designed to trap the extraction craft. Sensors blinked red. Clune's voice trembled. Containment field activating. Capture imminent. Probability of escape low. Sturgis's eyes narrowed. Probability only counts for those who assume predictability. We do not. Zoric slammed his fists against the control panel. Then what do we do? Observation first, Sturgis replied. Then exploitation. Use their assumptions against them. Watch and act. The human crew initiated a series of rapid maneuvers, slaloming through asteroid clusters, utilizing gravitational anomalies, and generating microdisturbances in the surrounding plasma fields. Alien drones followed, but each one was led into a trap, disoriented by environmental variables humans had learned to exploit. Clune recorded everything in awe. Every movement is calculated in real time. No model can predict this. It is human intuition amplified by experience. Suddenly, an opportunity appeared. One of the alien command ships shifted its orientation, leaving a blind spot in the defensive grid. Sturgis seized the moment. Deploy the signal distortion array. Lead them into the channel. The human's craft emitted a pulse that created a cascading effect across the alien fleet, forcing automated systems to misread multiple inputs simultaneously. Swarms of drones collided, ships misaligned, and communication channels became chaotic. The fleet was stunned, unable to predict the next human move. Zorik grinned. "They're falling into our trap." "Yes," Sturgis said, "but this is only phase 1. We take the fight on our terms, not theirs." The extraction craft darted forward, weaving between alien ships, exploiting every gap and blind spot. Clune's sensors struggled to track the movements. "I cannot compute their trajectory. It is unpredictable." "That's the point," Sturgis said. "Humans are unpredictable. That is the ultimate weapon." Phase 2 involved turning the environment itself into an ally. The humans used asteroid clusters as cover, magnetic anomalies to distort targeting sensors, and minor gravitational shifts to destabilize drone swarms. Alien commanders, accustomed to overwhelming firepower and advanced tech, could not account for Earth-bred ingenuity. Corin, still in disbelief, observed the final engagement metrics. "Their species does not fight with strength alone. They fight with foresight, adaptation, and environmental mastery. It is terrifyingly efficient." The humans pressed their advantage. Decoy signals misled the fleet into collisions with asteroids, disabled turrets, and interference fields that rendered energy weapons useless at critical moments. Each maneuver was a dance of survival, a lesson learned from every gauntlet, every trial on Earth. Finally, Sturgis issued the last command, Phase 3, direct engagement. We strike at the command ship's weak point. Precision, not force. Using data gathered from previous waves, the humans executed a surgical strike on the command ship's energy core. The pulse disrupted its systems, causing a cascade failure. The fleet, now leaderless and disoriented, began to retreat. Humans did not pursue recklessly. They allowed intelligence, timing, and psychological pressure to ensure the enemy's withdrawal. Clune, still recording, whispered, "Your species, you have no equal in adaptation. The Outer Coalition will never forget this. They cannot predict this, cannot model this. Humans are beyond conventional engagement metrics." Sturgis, calm and composed, addressed his team. "Victory is not about destruction. It is about understanding the battlefield, exploiting weaknesses, and applying knowledge where others expect force. Humans have always done this. The galaxy is only beginning to see it." Zorik shook his head in awe. "So, humans really are unstoppable?" "Not unstoppable," Sturgis replied, "but underestimated. That is our edge. That is why humanity survives, thrives, and adapts where others fail. Intelligence, foresight, and improvisation, these are the tools no technology can replace." The fleet's retreat left the humans in control of the asteroid field. They had faced a technologically superior force and emerged victorious, not by sheer power but by mastering the environment, predicting behavior, and exploiting alien assumptions. Clune's voice was almost reverent. "I must report this. Every species that underestimates humans risks annihilation or defeat. You do not merely survive, you dominate strategically." Sturgis turned toward the observation window. The stars stretched endlessly before them, each one a potential battlefield, each one a reminder of humanity's potential. "Remember this lesson," he said. "The universe is full of threats that cannot be predicted. But humans will always find a way. And when we do, it will be precise, intelligent, and unavoidable." Corin and Zorik nodded, understanding finally dawning. Humans were not just adaptable, they were masters of adaptation itself. They turned unpredictability into power, observation into advantage, and survival into triumph. The craft moved forward, leaving the retreating fleet behind. Humanity's reputation had changed in a single encounter. The galaxy had witnessed the Earth-bred edge, a species that could not be underestimated, a species that used brains over brawn, strategy over chaos, and foresight over impulse. In the quiet aftermath, Sturgis allowed himself a rare smile. The gauntlet is never truly over. But humanity has proven something tonight. We survive, we adapt, and we prevail. And that is why the galaxy will never underestimate us again. As Part 5 concludes, the HFY theme is undeniable. Human ingenuity, adaptability, and strategic foresight make humanity a force that no alien, no matter how advanced, can fully predict or control. Technology alone cannot win wars. The mind, experience, and the ability to learn in real time is humanity's true weapon. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and the humans pressed forward, ready for whatever the galaxy would throw at them next. The retreating alien fleet faded into the darkness of deep space, leaving a trail of debris, damaged drones, and the echoes of their confusion. Humanity had won the battle, but Sturgis knew better than to celebrate prematurely. Victory in war was only meaningful if it could be sustained. "Status report," he said, voice steady, scanning the bridge displays. Clune's sensors hummed, still processing the anomalies from the engagement. "The fleet's retreat is disorderly. They have suffered severe system failures. However, the outer coalition will consolidate and retaliate once they recover. Probability of counterattack in the next cycle, high." "High indeed," Sturgis agreed. "But this gives us time. Time to learn, reinforce, and prepare. Every encounter teaches us something. That is humanity's true advantage." Zorik clenched his fists, a mix of relief and anticipation. "So they'll be back?" "They always will," Sturgis said. "But when they return we will be ready, not because of our weapons but because of our strategy, our adaptability, and our understanding of their tactics." Clune, still absorbing data, muttered something that sounded almost like awe. "Humans, you do not merely survive. You adapt in ways that defy prediction. The outer coalition underestimated your species, and it is a mistake they will remember. But their retaliation, it will be catastrophic unless anticipated." Sturgis nodded. "Exactly. That is why we begin Phase 2 immediately. Intelligence networks, predictive modeling of alien responses, and preparation for asymmetrical engagements. Our victory here is temporary if we do not evolve." Ripples across the galaxy. News of the encounter spread faster than any official channel could contain. Holotransmissions intercepted by neutral factions broadcast images of the extraction craft, the collapsed alien formations, and the subtle yet decisive human maneuvers. Across dozens of star systems, whispers turned into conversations, and conversations turned into concern. Galactic leaders convened emergency councils. Some were awed. Others were terrified. For centuries, species had assumed humans were technologically inferior, isolated, and predictable. That assumption had just been shattered. A holographic council chamber flickered with light as representatives from multiple star systems argued over the human threat. The Varelians demanded immediate sanctions. The Zarthi insisted on a preemptive strike. The Elorians, calculating, cautious, suggested observation and intelligence gathering. Clune's recording device captured it all. "They perceive humans differently now," he noted. "Your species has forced a paradigm shift. Previously, humans were one among many. Now, they are a variable that cannot be ignored. Every species must recalculate their projections." Meanwhile, on Earth and allied human colonies, preparation intensified. Scientists, engineers, and strategists studied the battle in granular detail. Every movement, every micro-adjustment in trajectory, every clever use of environmental variables became a lesson. Humanity did not merely celebrate, they analyzed, upgraded, and evolved. Strategic expansion. Sturgis addressed the assembled human leaders in a secure command hub. "Our survival depends on learning faster than they can adapt. That means deeper intelligence, wider surveillance, and smarter deployments. They cannot predict lateral thinking. That is our edge. But we cannot rely on luck." "Do we have allies willing to cooperate?" Zorik asked. "Some," Sturgis said. "Neutral factions are curious, cautious, but willing to trade information. Others will watch, waiting for humans to falter. It is our responsibility to turn observation into advantage. The galaxy is watching. We either lead or are forced to respond." Across the network, automated scouts began charting alien systems, cataloging fleets, and monitoring communications. Humans had always been explorers. Now, exploration became strategic intelligence gathering. The alien perspective. Back in the outer coalition, the council was in turmoil. Commanders debated endlessly. "The humans are unpredictable," admitted one general, his claws shaking over the data panel. "They do not follow logic in ways we understand. Every engagement is a new equation we cannot solve." Another representative growled, "If we attack with overwhelming force, they adapt. If we wait, they grow stronger. Every option carries risk. The humans are a species that cannot be cornered using conventional tactics." Clune, still a reluctant observer, whispered into the transmission log, "Your species is already writing the rules of war differently. Others will follow or they will perish. Humans are rewriting the galaxy's strategic calculus. Preparing for the next gauntlet." Back on the extraction craft, Sturgis surveyed the galaxy through the observation viewport. Planets, stars, and asteroid clusters stretched endlessly. Every victory is temporary. Every retreat is an opportunity. Every encounter is a lesson. Humanity thrives because we learn faster, adapt faster, and act faster than any opponent expects. Zorik stood beside him, a newfound respect in his eyes. And yet, it feels like the universe itself is watching us. It is, Sturgis said. Every intelligent species observes patterns. But humans are pattern breakers. That is why we survive. That is why we thrive. And that is why we will continue to dominate strategically in every corner of the galaxy. The human crew began preparing the next phase: modular fleet enhancements, advanced AI-assisted strategy simulations, and expanded scout networks. They would turn every past engagement into predictive advantage, ensuring that no enemy would ever underestimate them again. Clune, recording silently, captured the truth: humans are not the strongest. They are not the fastest. They are the most adaptable. And adaptability is the ultimate weapon. As the craft accelerated toward uncharted space, the crew knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of threats, and brimming with unknown civilizations. Some would fear humanity. Others would challenge them. But one fact was undeniable: humans had set the standard for strategic mastery, improvisation, and survival. Sturgis's final words as Part 6 concluded were quiet but resolute. We will face the galaxy not with brute force, but with the intelligence, adaptability, and foresight that define us. The universe may test us, but humanity will always respond, not predictably, not linearly, but decisively and effectively. And that will be our legacy. The stars awaited. Humanity pressed forward, ready for the next wave of challenges, enemies, and opportunities. The galaxy had changed in the wake of one species that refused to be underestimated. This chapter close.